It's Bears-Packers Part 3 as the NFL playoffs for 2025 begins next weekend. Despite the regular season loss at Soldier Field to the Detroit Lions 19-16. What went right, what went wrong, what's ahead for the Monsters of the Midway? We'll give you our thoughts. In basketball, the Bulls lost to the Charlotte Hornets for the third time this year, and they did something stupid again at the end of a game. I guess we had to go through that useless garbage. Back to the NFL. Black Monday has taken place, and your Las Vegas Raiders will own the number 1 pick in this upcoming 2026 draft. In baseball, the Cubs, they're still sitting on their hands. What are we gonna do, LaKeena? I guess we have to send you up there to Clark and Addison. I don't know. And in college football, we're down to the Final Four as the college football playoff continues. One team had a dominating performance, while the University of Miami, well, they did some things that shocked some people. It didn't shock me. We'll give you the details. And time permitting, we'll have Old School TV Monday. That and a whole lot more. So our first show for the new year 2026 starts now.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Keep him on the field. And this one, a drive into left center field. Going back is Churio at the wall. Get out! So Robert Jr., his 4th of the season. And the Sox take the lead 2-1.
Armstrong gets into another one. Sends Edman back. He's watching it land in the stands. What a night from Pete Crow Armstrong. Goes wide, up the guard again. And he scores. What a play!
On Jordan Binnington, no chance at all for the Blues netminders. Connor Bedard. Wow.
Getting what a catch. Buzelis with the fake on the drive.
Uze motions left. They're blitzing. It's picked up. Caleb throws. Middle of the field. Love the catch. Breaks away the 30. Love the 20. Love the 10. Love the end zone. Touchdown Bears.
Welcome to Second City Sports with the hashtag Monday Extravaganza Edition, the first show for the year 2026. You're locked and loaded, and we're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago, along with Miss LaKeena McGee, which is she's over here. Oops. I'm Sidney Brown. You know, over here, you know it's me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You follow my King Wiki on the Twitter, execute again at IG.
Be sure to download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Please follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms on Facebook, X, Instagram, and YouTube. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
We are unapologetically fun, and we have very definite opinions. If you have any definite opinion during our 2-hour extravaganza we call a Sports Talk Radio Show, you better hit us up right now at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comment section. LaKeena will give the up on the screen for you. But if you decide to troll and or do something silly, dumb, or stupid, I forget LaKeena for powers to give you dumbos to Bill and Beer Boot to start off the new year.
Toodles.
But before we begin, shout out to our live game. That's LIVE Live Entertainment Game. That's checking us out live in living color right now at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook and YouTube channels at 12:21 p.m. Central Standard Time. But let's not forget much love to the replay game that's checking us out on the replay, also at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook and YouTube channels. Don't you ever forget our motto, where we talk sports, music, or entertainment. We will provide.
We are provide you so the best of Second City Sports to start off the new year 2026. We got a loaded show, of course. The Blackhawks are undefeated in the new year. Also, college football playoff as we're down to the Final Four. College hoops as conference play starts. A little sports media news as the ratings for 6 times the score in their new lineup. Something that they should be very happy about. Also, if time permitting, Old School TV Monday. And, of course, the Bulls, well, they lose to the Hornets. Their first loss to the Hornets this year. They won 2 out of 3. And some other weird stuff happening in that game yesterday on Saturday, but we'll get to that. But first, to start the new year, as we always do here, it's our Football Power Hour. We will talk some Bears and Lions, and well, it was the Lions that came out victorious, even though the Bears did come back after being down 16-0. But unfortunately, they weren't able to do the cardiac thing. They hit a walk-off 42-yard field goal by Bates to finish up the season, by Jake Bates to finish off the season for them. They finish up 9-8. The Bears go to 11-6. They actually are tied with the Lions for the worst record in the division at 2-4. Of course, the Packers and the Vikings have better records, but because of the better conference records and all the other weird type, that's why the Bears end up winning the division and blah blah blah. But again, they did it's kind of funny because I'm hearing people, try to make excuses, say, well, the Bears, I'm glad they lost, blah, blah, blah. But this has been a theme all season for them. They've had slow starts, the defense can't stop the run. And also, Jahmyr Gibbs had 80 yards and 80 rushing yards, 42 yards for David Montgomery, former Bear. But it was Amon St. Brown, he was the LFG, of course, Tom Brady's award for, of course, the Fox of the game. Yesterday, 139 yards, 11 receptions. Jared Goff had a TD, the lone TD catch up to Brown. Caleb Williams threw for 2 TDs. Close Sullivan did catch one of those TDs. J.J. Walker got the other one. But Sid, this has been a theme here all season long for the Bears, and I know that there are people saying, well, maybe it's a good thing they're lost. I mean, it's not like this has been a new thing. It's not like this started happening a month ago. They've been having trouble with the run. They've been giving up big plays. Yes, Kevin Byard had a takeaway, but when they don't have those takeaways, like you'd be saying, they're not very good on the defensive front. And it's not like they can just, flip a switch, for Saturday night as they play a rematch for Green Bay again over up at Soldier Field. But Bears fans should be concerned going into Saturday.
It was the tale of two halves, LaKeena. The first half, you could blame a lot of it on Ben Johnson. We said this a few times this year, especially in the first half. Without Googling LaKeena, when was the last time the Bears scored an opening touchdown drive? Scored a touchdown on the opening drive, they scored a touchdown. Tell me what week the last time they did that. Yes, it was the season, folks.
Yeah, it was like week 5 or 6 or something like that.
Week 3 in their first win against the Dallas Cowboys. That was the last time the Bears scored a touchdown on their opening drive. It's, like you said, it's been many issues this year that's been a problem for this Bears team. Yes, the defense is obvious. We'll get to them in just a second. But getting off to these slow starts on offense, it has not been good. And like you said, now we into the second season. You cannot afford to do that against better teams. It's going to catch up to you. And Ben Johnson, I blame him for that first half yesterday. In the second half, as expected, it turned around. Like you said, they erased that 16-0 deficit, got back in the game. But LaKeena, shout out to a good friend, Dedrin Cologne. Follow him on social media. He's responsible for the imaging of our show since we came over here to Sports Zone Chicago a few years ago. He said in our group text, I know you're not a part of it, but he said in our group text, and I'll bring this back to the defense. We talked about Ben Johnson making adjustments at halftime, which he's very good at, but he's not good at setting the tempo to start games. Dennis Allen did not adjust his defense. I know some people are going to say, well, the Bears are limited what they could do. We know that they've been bad all year with the inconsistent lack of pass rush. We get it, but remember the first meeting at Detroit, LaKeena, early in the season, week 2, the Bears blitzed the hell out of Jared Goff. Guess what happened? The Lions made them pay, dropping 52 points on them. Yesterday, they backed off. They were selective in blitzing Jared Goff. What happened again? Yes, the Bears kept Detroit out of the end zone as many times as they did compared to the last meeting, but Jared Goff picked them apart. 237 total yards for Detroit in the first half. The Bears 69. What does that tell you? It was a culture adjustment that Dan Campbell saw in film last week. That's why Detroit started hot off in the game. Dennis Allen for the Chicago Bears didn't adjust, in my opinion. I agree with our guy, Dedrick Cologne. He failed to make adjustments defensively in that second half regarding Dennis Allen. Now, another thing that I want to talk about here quickly, as you listen to Second City Sports on Chicago, still LaKeena here with you. We're discussing the Bears' 19-16 loss to the Detroit Lions at the Soldier Field on the Lakefront yesterday in the regular season finale. Another thing that's going to cost this team to advancement in the playoffs, mental mistakes. There were two of them yesterday, and one of them was Andrew Billings on their last drive for Detroit, which helped set them up for the game-winning field goal, jumping off sides. I know players, defensive players, try to time the snap count, but you don't try to be sneaky at that in that situation. It's called situational football. You got to know what to do in those situations. You got to be smart. And Andrew Billings didn't help himself in that situation yesterday.
Now the other, there were a lot of drops. I know that there are people who are kind of been talking about that. There were some couple of chances. I know DJ Moore had a key drop there as well for the Bears, and it's sort of been one of those things where I heard Ben Johnson's presser after the game, and he called them out and blah blah blah. But like I said, it's not like this has been a new thing. Like this has been a theme. Pretty much the whole season. So I think to say that they can just flip the switch, now going into the playoffs on Saturday, and look, it's sort of one of those things where, like, look, if you heard Amon-Ra St. Brown's comments to Tom Brady, of course, he won the LFG Player of the Game yesterday. He said, look, they wanted to win this game. They wanted to kind of finish the season on a high note. They didn't have to they could have rested him and Golf and the rest of those starters. But look, I mean, I think they wanted to send a message early on that, hey, look, if it weren't for injuries and a couple of bad losses, they probably be going to the playoffs instead of the Bears. Let's be honest. But it's sort of one of those things where the Bears look listless. They didn't look like they wanted to play yesterday, and that's on the coaching staff. Like I said, you can't do that against the Packers. You're going to be facing them again in the playoffs. And it's just one of those things where this kind of thing can come back to bite you. And I've been saying that all season long. People say, oh, you're just a hater, you're doing this. Well, look, you saw what happened yesterday, and look, some of us have been saying, we're warning y'all about this. So, this is why I say this team is not. Look, could they make a run? I know Ben Johnson. We can win 4 in a row. Can you really? You're gonna have. I don't know, but yeah, it's just one of those things where that the mindset just has to change, and this team's not ready for it yet. They're just not.
I have a question for you and for our listeners and viewers regarding the Bears going forward in the playoffs coming up after the break. But just wrapping up on the Lions contest from yesterday. LaKeena, let's go back to the fourth quarter. Before the Kevin Byard interception, the Lions were driving to take the lead, trying to take the lead the first time. After they secured a first down, this was around the 2:30, 2:40 mark before the Kevin Byard interception. What the hell Dan Campbell was doing? You called 3 straight passing plays, including that third down play that Kevin Byard intercepted the pass on. Shout out Jaquan Briscoe getting his hand up in the air to deflect that ball. Dan Campbell, even though he's been calling the plays for the second half of the season on the offensive side, he almost gave that game away the first time. He's lucky enough that his defense stopped the Bears on the 4th and 5 and forced the Bears to punt. We'll get to that situation in just a moment. But what the hell Dan Campbell was doing there? He almost cost the team the game. And on the flip side, you mentioned about the coaching, LaKeena, Ben Johnson. Why would you punt on 4th and 5? I get why he did it at the time, but this team has been pretty much successful on 4th and 5 and less all year. Why would you decide to punt now? I know he said after the game that he had 3 timeouts, so he trusted his team to stop him, which didn't happen. But what was your thoughts about those 2 crucial situations, one by each coach?
Well, if you saw, I guess you see his list, before the break, he said that I'm talking about Ben Johnson, that they, he should have went for it. And maybe they should have. Look, if they had missed it, okay, fine. The whole thing, with Dan Campbell, he's going to go for it. That's been his thing, since he started coaching the Lions. So it's not a new thing for him, but they should have went for the knockout punch early. So.
All right, we'll have the knockout punch to our Bears post-game show coming up following this timeout. I have a question for LaKeena and for our audience out there regarding the Bears as they head into the playoffs against Green Bay next Saturday night. And we'll recap Week 18 from the rest of the National Football League. That and a whole lot more. She's Stick and Say right here on Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago.
Hey, it's your boy, the Superback, Sean Sierra, and be sure to follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms. On Facebook, Instagram, and our Roku channel, you can find us at Sports Zone Chicago. And on Twitter, we are at Sports Zone Chi. Also, be sure to download our mobile app so you can take Sports Zone Chicago with you on the go.
got it done here. Ouch! And we're gonna make sure you lit this time. Ouch! You're not gonna get me this time.
Ow, Manny!
Oops. Let's try an easy one.
Every day, we take steps to keep the people we love safe, but some health risks are easy to miss. Ticks hiding in the yard can spread germs, like the ones that cause Lyme disease. Mice searching for food can spread bacteria that makes us sick. Mosquitoes lay eggs in standing water and can spread West Nile virus and more. Cockroaches are drawn to water in the home, leaving behind allergens that can trigger asthma attacks. Common pests can threaten our health. Learn how to protect your family at pestworld.org.
Hey, this is Corey McGee, and I listen to Sean and Maya on the morning show.
Welcome back to Second City Sports, our debut show for the year 2026. You're locked and loaded, and we're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. I'm Sid, that's LaKeena. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
And you follow my kid McGee on the Twitter, X, and the IG.
As we continue and put a capper on this Bears post-game show and recap the rest of the NFL's Week 18 action from yesterday, you can definitely hit us up at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube if you have any questions or comments. If you do have any questions or comments, you can put those up in the comment section. LaKeena will get the up on the screen for you.
Our My Hungriest Bear for Week 18 is Colson Loveland, 91 receiving yards and a TD. Go to your Hungriest Bear and your question, you said, because like I said, we got a lot of games we got to go through, and I don't want to, like I said, we'll do the Bears, Packers Bears preview on Friday, but yeah, let's get to your Hungriest Bear and your question for as the Bears go into the playoffs.
Last Hungriest Bear of the game award for the regular season, I concur with you. Colson Loveland was his performance stood out to me. As you mentioned, 10 catches, 91 yards, and the touchdown to get the Bears back into the game. My question for you and for Bears fans that are listening and watching, you can comment at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook and YouTube channels. We talked about the defense being inconsistent all year with the lack of pass rush. I think that's a given that many Bears fans have going into the playoffs. What's your number one concern? Taking it lack of pressure from the quarterbacks, lack of quarterback sacks. Take that out of the equation. What are your two? Which one of these two are you concerned the most? The mental aspect for this Bears team. I talked about one of those situations yesterday with Andrew Billings, or the lack of inconsistent play call by both Dennis Allen and Ben Johnson. Which one of those two are you concerned the most heading into next Saturday night's game against the Packers?
I'll say neither.
The mental breakdowns or the coaching?
I think it's neither one of those things. I think it's because the defense just isn't very good. And also the coaching. I know Ben Johnson said, "Well, look, we lost two in a row, and then we won 4. Well, here's your 4 games against the Cowboys, the Raiders, and Commanders, and the Saints. None of those 4 teams are going to the playoffs. Even worse, none of those 4 teams. Those 4 teams are going to be picking in the top 7 in the NFL draft coming up in May. So you can't use that as a different way because you're facing a Packers squad that's just as flawed as you are." And also, like, the inconsistencies. You got to have a big start if you're the Bears going into Saturday against Green Bay, because you know each other very well. And look, the Packers rest a lot of their stars. We'll get to the rest of the Week 8 schedule in a second here, but the Packers rested a lot of their guys yesterday, and I think that they may have the advantage going into the game. We'll see. You were basically a Romeo Dobbs catch, onside kick away from losing that game. So I don't want to hear people say, well, we'll kick the Packers' butt. They're easy to beat. Well, you almost lost that Packers squad too a few weeks ago at Soldier. So, that whole thing. Yeah. So, but I think it really is the rush defense and the coaching, the inconsistencies. It's both.
I'm with you as far as the coaching aspect of it. We talked about it before the break, and it's been a common theme throughout the season, talking about the Bears getting off to a fast start. I know that Ben Johnson went with the quote-unquote game flow in yesterday's game, but you got to set the tempo early and run the football. We didn't see much of it in that first half. We saw just a little bit of it in that second half, but the lack of strong starts is what's going to cost this team if they don't get it together next Saturday night in time for the game against the Packers. So them getting off to slow starts is going to be my concern. We know that the defense has been bad all year, and I'll leave you with this status. We put a capper on this Bears post-game talk. The Bears are 9-0 when they create 2 or more turnovers. Think about it for that second. 9-0 when they create 2 or more turnovers. The rest of their record, 4-4. 4-5, I should say. Figure that out. 2-5, I should say.
2-5. I say that they were 2-5, I think. But yeah, when they don't get the takeaways. Okay. Well, as well, let's recap. Starting with the NFC South, that didn't really exactly answer the question, but the Bucs did beat the Panthers 16-14. This is from Saturday, the early game on Saturday. Baker Mayfield threw for a TD and an interception, 203 yards. Bryce Young, 260 yards and 2 TDs. Bucky Irving had 85 rushing yards. Cade Otton, 94 receiving yards and that lone TD catch. Now, unfortunately, well, I'll get to the point where they're not in the playoffs talking about the Bucs, but a nice win for the Bucs in rainy, soggy Tampa. And if you're the Bucs, you're probably kicking yourself because speaking of losing streaks, they had lost 4 in a row, and 7 of their last 11. Unfortunately, that's why they're in Cancun for the playoffs. Unfortunately.
Yeah, the Buccaneers took advantage of that rainstorm last Saturday, outscoring Carolina 13-7 in that first half, including a 10-0 start to the game in that opening quarter. But LaKeena, shout out to Bryce Young, 24-35, 266 yards and 2 touchdown passes. I know that the Panthers didn't have much of a running game in that second half, but I thought that Bryce Young really stepped up big when they had to, even though there was in a loss. On the flip side, for Tampa, they actually found the running game sort of. Bucky Irving, 26 carries for 85 yards to help Tampa's 2-point win. But Carolina looks like they're looking forward to the second season next week.
Yeah, so we'll get, like I said, we'll get to the reason why Carolina is in the playoffs now in a second. But first, the other game, which is probably end up being one of the games, well, not necessarily games of the week, but it was definitely the game of the night here. The Seahawks. The Seahawks beat the Niners 13-3 Saturday night. 190 yards for 98 yards for Sam Darnold. Kenneth Walker III had 97 rushing yards. Actually, Sixon Jigma had a couple big catches. The flip side for Brock Purdy, only 127 passing yards. Had a key interception that kind of killed whatever momentum the 49ers were trying to start off. Christian McCaffrey, he wasn't really a factor either, only 23 rushing yards. It was basically that defense for the Seahawks, and they sacked Brock Purdy 3 times, and Drake Thomas, of course, had that killer interception near the goal line that kind of killed whatever momentum the 49ers were trying to get. So not only do the Seahawks, not only do they win the division in the NFC's West, but they also get the number 1 seed. And each time that they were the number 1 seed, it happened all this century, but take it for what it's worth, they went to the Super Bowl the other 3 times that they were the number 1 seed and clinched the division. So take that for what you will. But yeah, the Seahawks, the road to the Super Bowl in the NFC goes to the Pacific Northwest.
Bravo to the Seahawks defense. If you've been paying attention to our show all year, you're surely in LaKeena have been talking about the Seahawks defense all year. Is it the Legion of Boom defense for the last decade? No, but they are effective enough that they can change ball games. You saw that last Saturday night, and you saw Brock Purdy leave the game with a bloody injured finger. It looks like he's going to be okay for their playoff game next week. But the Seattle Seahawks, we talk about their offensive weapons: Sam Darnold and Jackson Smith and Jimba and Kenneth Walker III and Zach Charbonnet. But their defense stood tall. I had them in our picks. If you saw it on social media, I had Seattle win this game, but I didn't think they're going to be this dominant. But as we said before, a few weeks ago, should the Seahawks be that number 1 or number 2 seed, they are number 1 now. They can cause some teams some problems. So them going to the Super Bowl, I know historically, like you said, whenever they were the number 1 seed, they went to the Super Bowl. It's not too far-fetched to think that they can go to the Super Bowl, especially after that performance last Saturday night on the road.
And check this stat out, Sid. The run defense for Seattle, they faced in the last 2 weeks. They faced Bijan Robinson, Jonathan Taylor, Kyle Williams, Rico Dowdle, and of course Christian McCaffrey this past Saturday night. They did not allow 0 runs of 12+ yards. I think the most that they had was I think Jonathan Taylor had like an 11-yard run, but that's about as far as they got in that last Monday night game against Indy in Indy. So that defense for that Seahawks defense is going to cause some problems for people. We've been saying it all year long. Now y'all saw them on Saturday against the 49ers. You see why that defense of Seattle probably one, if not the best in the NFL.
Okay. You're listening to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. LaKeena here with you as we recap yesterday's Week 18 action, the regular season finale from the rest of the National Football League. The NFC South was decided in Atlanta as the Atlanta Falcons defeated the New Orleans Saints 19-17. Tyler Show for the Saints, 23 of 35, 259 yards and a touchdown. Mr. Estamine, the star running back for the Saints, Andrick Estamine, 21 carries, 63 yards. Drake London for the Falcons, 4 catches, 78 yards, and a touchdown. The Saints had a pair of one-handed catches. One went for a touchdown. The other one went for a first down. Shout out to tight end Johnson, who had the first one-handed catch. That was awesome. But LaKeena, with the Atlanta Falcons winning and their finishing record being at 89, the Carolina Panthers are your NFC South Division champions.
Yeah, Ronnie Bell had that great TD catch that that got it close for the Saints. Dion for shout out to him. He had that interception that kind of killed whatever chances the Saints had for probably winning that game. And unfortunately, because of that, Carolina, with tiebreakers and all the weirdness, they go to the playoffs for the first time since 2019. And it's it's sort of interesting. If you're Atlanta, you're kicking yourself because, again, you had a couple of bad losses that, unfortunately, you won 4 in a row, but they're cleaning house over there. Both Raheem Morris, the head coach, and Jerry Fontenot, former Bear, both were let go late last night. And Atlanta, and look, your Arthur Blake's not messing around. Look, they've already hired a new CEO for the Falcons, and also, it looks like Matt Ryan is going to be the anointed new title president of football over there. Greg Beatles has been named president CEO of the Falcons now, so that's going to be a totally new regime in Atlanta. But they got something to build on, going into next season.
Yeah, I was really enjoying Matt Ryan on CBS. If he takes that job, it's going to be a total loss for CBS, but we'll discuss that on a later date. Does this mean that Ryan Pace, the former Bears GM, still keeps his job? I know he was the director of scouting, but does he still have a job down there, or did they let him go too?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Do you know?
I don't know. That's a good question. Like I said, we'll see. I'm sure they're going to want to completely clean house, so we'll see what happens there. Now, staying in the South, going to the AFC South, Houston, they took care of business. Well, it was back and forth for a little, but it's actually ended up being a pretty entertaining game. 38-30, Texans over the Colts. TJ Stroud threw for TD pass, 169 yards. British Brooks, 63 rushing yards for Houston. They rest a lot of their guys. and such. Jaden Higgins had a TD catch
Mhm.
and such. On the flip side, Riley Leonard, 270 yards his first start and 2 TDs, so a solid showing by him. If you saw his parents, you saw his parents, the rest of his family, they were super excited for his
Mhm.
debut. Alec Pierce had 2 TDs, both those TD catches, 132 yards, and a couple big catches as well, and such. But yeah, it ended up being a pretty entertaining game. And the Texans, they go to momentum as they go to Pittsburgh for Super Wild Card Weekend.
Yeah, as you mentioned, LaKeena, some of the starters, the Houston Texans, rested. The others played in that first half, including C.J. Stroud. But give the Colts credit, as you mentioned, Riley Leonard had a chance to watch some of that game via NFL Red Zone, and he did look good. Is he the quarterback of the future for the Colts? I doubt it, but he could be a backup in Indianapolis or somewhere else. But the Texans, as we talked about all year long, LaKeena, we'll get to that playoff matchup in just a second, but they have a championship level defense that's going to keep them around in this playoff run. But as I said for the last month, and I'll say it here again, if they can score 21 points or more, they can be very dangerous, just like the Seattle Seahawks on the flip side.
Yeah, gonna be very interesting that game in Pittsburgh. We'll talk about that in a bit here. Giants and Cowboys. Giants. Jackson Dart, 2 TDs, 230 yards. Tyrone Tracy Jr. had 103 rushing yards as the Giants beat the Cowboys 34-17. On the flip side, Dak Prescott didn't play a lot. He only had pass for 70 yards. Joe Milton, Jaden Blue, I should say, had a rushing TD and such. And look, we already know they're looking for a new head coach. Joe Schoen, for the GM, he's going to keep his job out there with the Giants. So now they're going to be searching for a new head coach. On the flip side for Dallas, well, I'm interested to see what happens with Dak because it's the last year of that contract. They don't have to worry about that contract anymore, and other changes in happening. And they got a couple of big draft picks from that Micah Parsons trade. So we'll see we'll see what the future heads for both of these teams.
Yeah, for the Cowboys, will Jerry Jones re-sign wide receiver George Pickens, who they picked up in a trade with before the start of the season. Usually, Jerry Jones, if he signs players to big deals, they'll take it down to the last second. We'll see what happens with Mr. Pickens on the flip side for the Giants. Yes, you have a franchise quarterback in Jackson Dart. We saw that as Bears fans back in November. But if you're the Giants, you need an offensive head coach, like your last head coach in Brian Dable. Is Mike McCarthy the answer? Is somebody like a Ben Johnson type the answer? I think so. I'm not saying Mike McCarthy is the answer for the Giants, but you need an offensive mind to help grow a young quarterback and help him take his game to the next level.
I'd be very interested to see what the Giants do. There might be some familiar names going around for that one. We'll see what happens. Now, going to Cincy, the Battle of Ohio in the AFC North. Shout out to Myles Garrett. Now he has a record all by himself, the sacks record with 25 sacks. Now remember, sacks didn't become a stat till 1982. So Lord knows, Lord knows, all the great defenders that what happened. But yeah, he got the sack. He sacked Joe Burrow, and that helped the Browns edge out the Bengals in their regular season finales 2018. Stuart Sanders threw for 111 yards. Dylan Sampson, there was a lot of rushing there, but yeah, that was really the big story. 3 TDs for Burrow, but that was really, there really wasn't much. But the defense, the Garrett, Myles Garrett, the rest of that Cleveland defense kind of kept the Bengals at bay, and they were able to edge them out in the end.
Yeah, congrats to Myles Garrett. And when his career is all said and done, he'll go down as one of the best defensive ends ever, up there with Lawrence Taylor, the late great Derek Thomas, and others, Mean Joe Green, and others. But as far as this game's concerned, the Browns ended their season on a high note, even though they finished with a 5-12 record, I should say. With the coaching changes as you've been talking about, Kevin Stefanski is out. GM Andrew Berry still has his job, and he's going to be ahead of the next coaching search for the Cleveland Browns. I know many people in Cleveland are perplexed by that, but we'll see what happens in that. On the flip side for Cincinnati, Zach Taylor will be back next year for the Bengals, trying to give it another run, but he's on thin ice, as you well know, LaKeena. The Bengals actually got out to a nice start this year because remember, in previous years, the Bengals were notoriously slow starters and had to turn around in midway of the season to get into the playoffs for the second half. But next year for Zach Taylor, if they get up to another slow start or they miss the playoffs entirely, it's going to be pink slip and link card for him.
Yeah, it's kind of, I know Browns fans are, I think Bengals fans are also perplexed by the fact that there aren't going to be any major changes because you got Trey Hendrickson, who, he's still going to, he still wants to leave. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens during the offseason with that, him and that contract. And I know Duke Tobey is also the GM for the Bengals will also be back. So we'll see. I mean, it's going to be interesting. They're going to have to make a lot of changes and try to find a way to invest in that defense because that's really what's killing them over there in Cincy. Now, staying in the Midwest, we go a little bit further, a little further northwest to Minnesota. Shout out to everybody's real dudes who had the call of this game for CBS. Most of the people, a lot of folks here in Chicago got this game as the Vikings beat the Packers. The Packers rested a lot of their guys, so not really no surprise there. No, JJ McCarthy threw for 182 yards. Jordan Mason, 94 receiving yards. Justin Jefferson led the way there. Not really much to say about the Packers. Like I said, they rested a lot of their guys. But a shout out to CJ Ham, who got a rushing TD. He's retiring after playing for the Vikings for 10 years. Also, of course, veteran linebacker Harrison Smith. He might play his last game for the Vikings. So that was really what this was about. But a nice one for Minnesota, finish 9-8 going into the offseason.
Shout out Justin Jefferson, 8 catches for 101 yards. So finally his first big game statistically in a long time. But the question for the offseason for the Minnesota Vikings, will JJ McCarthy be your starter for 2026? He has an injury-prone tag on him now. And what type of veteran backup are you going to bring in? Are you going to bring in a backup to challenge JJ for his job, or are you going to bring in a veteran to help JJ McCarthy along? We'll see what happens on that front for the Vikings. On the flip side for Green Bay, as you said, they rested a lot of their guys. They're trying to get ready for next Saturday night as they travel to Chicago to take on the Bears in the NFC wildcard playoff.
If you believe Diana Rossini, of course, she of course was at the ESPN for years now, works for Athletic. If you believe her, she said that they are gonna pursue perhaps maybe bringing a veteran on to compete with JJ McCarthy. So it could be something that the Minnesota Brass, they finished strong, took a couple of steps back, but gonna have to make some adjustments during the off season. Now the last of the noon games, Jacksonville, no trouble with Tennessee. Trevor Lawrence for 3 TDs, 255 yards. Travis Etienne rushed for 32 yards. Parker Washington and Brendan Savage each had a TD catch. Now I know Cam Ward, I know he had to leave, with a shoulder injury. The good news is it's no joints were damaged, so that's good news for the Titans quarterback going into the off season. And look, Jacksonville. Like I said, I think Liam Cohen's making the case for Coach of the Year. They face Buffalo. That should be a fun matchup. We'll talk about that matchup in a second here a little bit. But look, I think Jacksonville, especially with Tennessee, they're looking for a new head coach too, and some names being floated around. Maybe Matt Nagy, maybe even Cliff Kingsbury. I know heard his name around for that job too. So I mean, interesting on both fronts for both these teams at different reasons.
Yeah, the Jaguars had their way with the Titans yesterday, putting up a 41-piece. And shout out Liam Cohen, their head coach. He got those starters out of there at the start of the fourth quarter to have them get some rest. So that was a good veteran move by a rookie head coach. As you mentioned, Jacksonville's been one of the surprise teams in the league this year. They finished the year 7-2 at home, 13-4 overall. Your AFC South Division champs. And the Titans, you say they're looking for a new head coach, trying to get back on track for next year.
Could be interesting to see what they do here. I'm talking about both teams especially. Now we're going into the first of the 3:00 games. 37-20, the Rams over the Cardinals. They were just waiting to see who they're going to play in the playoffs. So they're going to go to Carolina. Matthew Stafford 4 TDs, 259 yards. For him, as I think he's definitely making a case for MVP. Tyler Higbee had a TD catch. Colby Parkins had 2 of those TD catches. On the flip side, Jacoby Brissett 2 TDs and an interception for the Cardinals on the flip side. Michael Wilson had another TD catch, so a nice rookie year for him. Now the problem is, unfortunately, that Jonathan Gannon, after wishing him happy birthday yesterday, he has now been let go by the Cardinals. Not really a big surprise, honestly. Kyler Murray can't stay healthy. Marvin Harrison Jr. had a bad sophomore campaign, couldn't stay healthy there. The defense, we'll see where Buda Baker, we'll see what he does, wants to during the offseason. On the flip side, the Rams, look, I think they're going to be a tough out for somebody. They're going to go to Carolina. That's going to be a tough matchup for Carolina. We'll see. But, yeah, interesting storylines again here on both fronts for both these teams.
My initial thought was I was surprised that the Rams starters played the whole game, but shout out to the Arizona Cardinals for giving the Rams a game. And as far as we know, LaKeena, no major injuries for the Rams. You mentioned Matt Stafford, what he did with those 4 touchdown passes yesterday. But watch out, as you mentioned, for the Rams, both their tight ends, both Parkinson and Higbee, they could both have big impacts in that game next week at Carolina for the wild card game. On the flip side, for the Cardinals, as we said a few weeks ago, they need to start over and rebuild. What can you get in a trade market for Kyler Murray with that huge contract they gave him a couple years ago? I don't know, but it seems like he's played his last game in that Cardinals uniform.
Going to be very interesting to see what they do here on C. I think that's his on Sneary. I think that's his name in the GM. He is going to be there too, so he's going to be part of the search. So we'll see what he does. It's going to be interesting to see what happens going forward down there in Arizona. Going to Denver. Well, Denver, they've clinched number 1 seed in the AFC. Now the Chargers, like I said, they rested a lot of their guys. So really, I felt bad for anybody who had to watch this game. 19-3, 141 yards for Bo Nix. And such. Now to the credit though for the credit for the Chargers defense, they did sack him 4 times. So the Denver Broncos, they sacked Trey Lance 4 times. So it really wasn't that exciting of a game, but yeah, look, the Broncos did their thing, 14-3. That's their best showing since they last time they went to the Super Bowl. And look, they were the number 1 seed in the AFC going into the playoffs.
Call me crazy, LaKeena, but I know the Broncos wore these uniforms a couple other times at home this year. They should keep those 1980s, 1990s uniforms, at least in the rotation. It looks like they will. I love those old blue helmets and those orange, those old school orange uniforms. I know they're a little bit modified now for today's times, but I hope they keep those in the rotation. It looks like they will. That's the only thing I enjoyed watching from that game yesterday. You mentioned the Chargers rested a lot of their starters. The Broncos, they knew that the number 1 seed was on the line. Sean Payton was going to not let that team lose focus, and they did what they had to do yesterday to clinch a 16-point win. 10-0 start to the game, which clinched it for the home team.
Though, remember those old Bronco, like the little horse at the on the end there, with the helmets and such.
Yes.
Remember those? I love those uniforms, but remember they were 0-4 in Super Bowls in those uniforms too. They were like 0-4 4 in those Super Bowls. So I think that's why they've actually done better with the new modern uniforms. I don't know, but yeah, I hope they do keep it in rotation at the very least. I love those uniforms. Those are one of my favorite uniforms from back in the day. Those Denver, the old Mile High Stadium, those old Denver uniforms and stuff, where we were able to watch those games. Sid, when we were able to without blackouts, but that's a But yeah, I love those. Those are really probably one of the more awesome old school unis in the NFL.
Yep. Wrapping up the late game action from yesterday, the Las Vegas Raiders, who I believe they'll own the number 1 pick in the 2026 NFL draft, they got a last-second field goal defeating the Kansas City Chiefs 14-12, and by that, the Raiders clinched a couple of things. As I mentioned, first, the number 1 pick, and number 2, they gave Pete Carroll a pink slip and link card.
Yeah, 3-14, and I know Christine back on our text chain. I know she was a little bit surprised. I wasn't. I think that this is gonna be interesting to see what I know. Tom Brady, of course, who he's part owner, and he is going to be a big part of the search. So we'll see what he does, what direction they decide to go. And the Raiders, they actually had already clinched it when the Giants beat the Cowboys. The Raiders already clinched it. They clinched it even before they played. So whatever happened, this was more for pride thing. On the flip side, for the Chiefs, I mean, they've got a lot to do as well. Pat Mahomes should be back before the start of the season. We'll see, but Travis Kelce, he might retire. Chris Jones, he might be gone. A lot of those veteran defensive guys might be gone too. So both these teams in the AFC West rivals are going to be very interesting. Have a lot of question marks going into the offseason.
Yeah, the offseason will be interesting for both of these teams. Staying in the AFC, history was made yesterday as the last game at Highmark Stadium, as I'll call it, Rich Stadium for you old schoolers out there in Orchard Park, New York. The Buffalo Bills played their last game at Rich Stadium as the Bills beat the New York Jets 35-8. The Jets did not show up yesterday. They did physically, but mentally they were checked out. Mitch Trubisky, that's right. Former Bear quarterback Mitch Trubisky, he goes down in history playing the last game at that old stadium, 22 of 29, 259 yards and 4 touchdowns. Mr. Ray Davis for Buffalo, 21 carries, 151 yards. Keon Coleman, 2 receptions for 49 yards. LaKeena, it's nothing to break down here that Buffalo, they were motivated to finish the regular season strong before heading down to Jacksonville to take on the Jaguars next Sunday afternoon in their wild card playoff game.
Yeah, that was basically. I mean, Mitch Trubisky actually looked pretty good. I watched a little bit of this game. It was really nothing much to write home about and whatnot. But now, if you do get to see Tre'Davious White, of course, the veteran corner for the Bills, as he was kind of taking in the scenery as everybody was, all the Bills were leaving Highmark Stadium. That stadium's been around, I think, like for almost 40 years. I've had a lot of great moments. And then you had, of course, the Goo Goo Dolls, one of my favorite bands growing up, in the 90s. They were a Buffalo-based band. Of course, they had Iris going on in the background as all the Bills were leaving the stadium. So that was actually a really cool moment. So if you guys will get a chance to see it, you guys just see that. But yeah, a nice momentum swing for Buffalo after that tough loss a couple of weeks ago. They got a little bit of momentum going into this weekend.
All right. Staying in the AFC, the New England Patriots defeated the Miami Dolphins by 28, 38-10. Drake made 14 18, 191 yards and a touchdown. Ramon J. Stevenson for the Patriots, 7 carries, 131 yards and 2 touchdowns. And Hunter Henry, the tight end for the Patriots, 5 catches for 56 yards. The Patriots lock up the number 2 seed, and they'll host the Los Angeles Chargers next Sunday night on NBC.
That should be an intriguing matchup next Sunday night. And as far as the Dolphins are concerned, now remember, Troy Aikman's going to be a big part of that GM search, a small part of it. So we'll see what they do. We'll let GM decide that, look, hey, I want to fire Mike McDaniel. So that's going to be kind of like the number one question here for the Dolphins going into this. But should be interesting though, nonetheless.
Yep. Despite the Chicago Bears losing yesterday to the Detroit Lions in their season finale at Soldier Field, Bears fans are thanking the Washington Commanders. You know why? Because the Commanders defeated the Philadelphia Eagles 24-17. The Eagles rested their starters, thus the Commanders took advantage. And by that notion, the Bears lock up the number 2 seed. The Philadelphia Eagles, with their loss yesterday, they are now the 3 seed, but they'll still get to host a home playoff game. They'll host the San Francisco 49ers next Sunday afternoon at 3:30 Central Standard Time on Fox. But regarding yesterday, Tyler McGee, the backup for the Eagles, 21 of 40, 241 yards in a touchdown. Mr. Tank Bisbee for the Eagles, 16 carries, 75 yards in a touchdown. Terry McLaurin on the flip side from Washington, 4 catches for 57 yards. Josh Johnson, yes, all 39 years old of him, scored the game-winning touchdown with his legs.
Yeah, 39 years old. Has played in leagues that don't exist anymore. And he said he loves playing, still loves playing the game. He loves, he's in good shape. He's played for like half the league pretty much. So, including here in the Bears for a little stint
for the Bears.
Yeah, a little stint for the Bears here for like a couple copy with the Bears. But yeah, look, nice showing by the Commanders. Look, they could have, ran away and hide, but they decided not to. They rested a lot of their guys. And a nice showing by Mr. Johnson and them. And look, if you're Nick Sirianni, you're I know some people say that he should be kicking himself for not playing his starters, but I don't know. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with this. But yeah. But look, I mean, you didn't want to leave. If someone had gotten hurt, people would say, well, why did he play his starters? It really didn't mean much. So people can miss me with some of this, but whatever. But a nice win for the Commanders going into the off season. They may have to make a couple of changes. On the defensive front, they may lose Cliff Kingsbury to one of these head coaching jobs. We'll see. But look, a nice showing, for Josh Johnson, and maybe he'll be playing again somewhere next year.
Yeah. And they got to get their key guys healthy, including their quarterback, Jay McDaniels. He'll enter year number 3 next season. Wrapping up our recap, Sunday Night Football, the regular season finale did not disappoint. The Steelers outlasted the Ravens 26-24. Lamar Jackson didn't have the greatest statistics, but ended up still with 3 touchdown passes. Aaron Rodgers on the flip side, 294 yards and a touchdown. Derrick Henry, 20 carries for 126 yards. Zay Flowers, 138 yards off of 4 catches and 2 touchdowns. But it was the Ravens kicker on their last drive of the game. Had it right down the middle where he wanted, but missed it from 44 yards out. Thus, the Steelers are your 2025 AFC North Division champs, and they'll host Houston, Texas next Monday night.
Yeah, Chris Boswell missed the extra point with that Calvin Austin touchdown, and unfortunately for the Ravens, Tyler Loop missed that 40-yarder. Look, I know there are going to be people that are going to say that, well, there was a priest out there that was pouring holy water on the end. So people need to remember that he actually hit a field goal from that side of the field. Talk about Loop did earlier in the game. So I think people did look. I know Pittsburgh's is a high Catholic population in Pittsburgh, but I'm just saying. Now again, with 12 seconds left, that whole thing was just weird. Now, could they have given the ball to Derrick Henry to perhaps maybe get him a little bit closer to make sure it was a sure thing? Maybe, or maybe they probably should have tried the end zone for a little bit, maybe. But pretty disappointing for the Ravens. Now, there's some people there that might say that maybe John Harbaugh should be gone. I don't know, but I know some people, some people heard Lamar Jackson's comments. He might want to leave. I don't know what you're gonna do with that contract, but we'll see. Pittsburgh, yeah, I think that defense for the Texans are gonna make a misfeed out of Aaron Rodgers. We'll see, but yeah, that was a weird game to say the least. The AFC South. I think if you had the over in that game, I think you had a nice capper to your weekend.
Yep. All right, our studs and duds are up right now. I'll start with my 3 studs. My first stud will it'll belong to the Seattle Seahawks defense. Second, Brock Purdy 3 times, keeping Christian McCaffrey in check as the Seahawks wrap up the number 1 seed in the NFC West Division title, being the 49ers 13-3. My second stud will go to, I'll give it to Trevor Lawrence, 22 of 30, 255 yards and 3 touchdown passes as the Jaguars wrap up the AFC South Division title, blowing out the Tennessee Titans 41-7. And my third stud will go to, surprise, former Bears quarterback and current Buffalo Bills quarterback Mitch Trubisky, 4 touchdown passes off of 259 yards as the Bills close out Rich Stadium, defeating their division rival, the New York Jets, 35-8.
Real quick, Seattle, enough said. My other stud, like I said, Minnesota, nice way to finish up their season with a couple there. Of course, like we talked about earlier, DJ Hammond, Harrison Smith, those guys might be well-loved guys that'll probably be retired. And Washington, look, they could have just ran away and hide. They didn't. So yeah, good for them for winning that game and taking advantage of Philly resting their starters. Now, my duds, I'll start with the duds. The Ravens, enough said, with that last drive. You wonder maybe they should have went forward for a little bit with they had a timeout left. Maybe they should have went for the end zone, or maybe they should have let Derrick Henry get them a couple yards closer. That's going to be a thing that's going to be smarting with Baltimore fans, I'm sure. The Bears, look, you can't do that stuff. I don't think they're going to be able to get it together, but we'll see. And my other dud, I guess Arizona. I mean, like I said, it'll be just to see what happens now that Jonathan Gannon is gone. It'll be just to see what they do during the off season. They may have to totally clean house over there.
Yep. My 3 duds are the New York Jets, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, despite them winning their last game of the year on Saturday. And my third dud will go to that Kansas City, Las Vegas Raiders game. And no one wanted to win that game. Kansas City thought they had it when Harrison Buckner nailed his field goal with seconds to go. But the Raiders came back and won the game, thus them finishing the NFL draft with the first pick of the NFL draft. Now, quickly, the draft order is as goes from 1 through 10. Raiders, Jets, Cardinals, Titans, Giants at 5th, Browns 6, Washington 7, New Orleans 8, Kansas City 9, Bengals 10.
Yeah, we just see what happens there. You got a nice lot of depth there, so we'll see what all those teams do with their respective picks. Now, incidentally, though, said real quick, the AFC West teams, they didn't score a single offensive TD today. It's only the second time in NFL history where every team in a division was in action on a given day, and none of them scored an offensive TD. Yeah, going back to 1988, where 5 AFC East teams combined for 27 points all on field goals. So take that for what it's worth with that one. Oh, boy. Anyway, hour number 1, the books. Hour number 2 coming up here on Second City Sports. On Sports in Chicago, Bulls lose to a tough one to the Hornets, the rest of the NBA, and if time permitted, a little bit of college hoops as well. So it's going to be a super quick break. Going to do the hard work coming next. LaKeena, McGee, City Brown, Second City Sports. On Sports in Chicago, basketball talk coming up right after this.
Hey, it's your boy, the Superback, Sean Sierra, and be sure to follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms, on Facebook, Instagram, and our Roku channel. You can find us at Sports Zone Chicago, and on Twitter, we are at Sports Zone Shy. Also, be sure to download our mobile app so you can take Sports Zone Chicago with you on the go.
How do you take care of your mind health?
For my mental health, I meditate in the mornings.
I have my dogs. They're the best.
I just find ways that help me just relax.
Finding things that make me happy, like being close to my family.
I meditate a lot and read books.
I have hobbies outside of the game. I'm able to switch off. I'm able to turn my brain off from the game of basketball.
Your mind health matters.
Your mind health matters.
It's a romance sport. What? It's a romance sport like that.
Your Marine Corps' way of life is to defend the American way of life. Every day, no matter where we serve, we take a stand for our nation, for each other, for us all. The few, the proud, the Marines.
Every body in a work zone is someone somebody.
This is my mom. She works for KDOT.
This is my dad.
This is my mom.
This is my daddy.
This is my sister.
This is my daddy.
This is my son, Scott. He was killed while working in a highway work zone. When you drive through a work zone, drive like a life depends on it. Because it does.
Absolutely. I'm just talking about.
Welcome back to Second City Sports as we kick off hour number 2 of our debut program for the year 2026. I am Sidney Brown, which is me. LaKeena McGee over there is she. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG. It's SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow LaKeena McGee on the Twitter, X, and here's again the IG.
As we kick off hour number 2, discussing the Bulls, the NBA, and taking a trip around the college hoops landscape as well to kick off hour number 2. If you have any questions or comments regarding those subjects, you can definitely hit us up at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comment section. LaKeena, get the up on the screen for you.
Bulls had a tough loss over the weekend. They lose to the Hornets after winning a couple in a row, 112-99. It's their first loss for the Bulls to the Hornets this year. On the flip side, on the losing effort, Vooch had 28 points and 8 assists. Not much to say after that. Ayo Dosunmu did have 16 off the bench for the Bulls, and 17 points for Matas Buzelis, including a couple of quick monster dunks, but it wasn't enough as Miles Bridges had 26 points, 22 points for Brandon Miller. All 5 stars were in double figures for the Hornets as they beat the Bulls. The Bulls go to 17-18. They face the Celtics tonight over at TD Garden, but the 17-18, the Bulls, they are who you thought they were, as the late great Denny Green would say, but it was just they did beat I mean, it was a mixed bag. I mean, they did beat Orlando the night before, 112-114. Buzelis had 21 points there, but so there was a mixed bag for the Bulls this weekend.
Before I give you my quick breakdown of the Bulls' weekend action, shout out to our good homegirl in front of the show, Miss Colin Mills of the Big Tent Network. She filled in greatly for Adam and me on last Saturday night's broadcast against the Charlotte Hornets. She did an outstanding job, and she did a better singing job with that nationwide commercial with the Stacey Key reading that promo there. So she sounded great, and we're definitely going to get her back on this program down the road. But as far as the Bulls are concerned, you mentioned last Friday's victory over Orlando. That was very impressive. Matas Buzelis, he's starting to improve. Hope he can reach the 20-point mark so he can win the NBA Most Improved Player of the Year award. He gave Jalen Suggs a much-needed facial dunk. That was a top NBA dunk, in my opinion, facial dunk, in my opinion, in the NBA this year. But you mentioned last Saturday, LaKeena. I had the chance to rewatch that game. Why? Because we had to do this show. But it was a tale of two halves for Chicago. The way, as we talked about, they started out 5-0, 6-1 to start the year. They were sharing the basketball, taking care of the basketball, forced and turnovers on defense. They nailed that formula to perfection that first half. But in that second half, as you mentioned, Charlotte had all 5 starters at double figures. They hustled the Bulls in the second chance department. Offensive rebounds is killing the Bulls forever. Charlotte took advantage of that as well in that second half.
Yeah, that was I saw a little bit of the highlights. Yeah, they did take advantage of all that, and look, the 3-point was definitely sort of like Charlotte's best friend in that game on Saturday. So that's why the Bulls were able to outshoot the Bulls, and Bridge I think was like 3 for 4 for 3-point range. So they were able to get the better of the Bulls there in that game on Saturday. Now they do like I said, they do face the Celtics in Boston tonight. Boston, I mean, they're coming off a long West Coast trip. They did beat the Clippers pretty handily on Saturday, staying with the Saturday's games. J.D. Brown had 50 points, which is not even a career high. It's a season high for him, but it's going to be interesting to see what they do tonight. Now, the Bulls have actually been okay against Boston, so we'll see if they can, do that. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens. You have the trade deadline coming up in about a month, so I'm wondering, look, I know Vooch is probably going to be begging and pleading to get the hell out of Dodge. So, Kobe White, if he stays healthy, well, Kobe White, I mean, well, I'm saying, let's be honest here, but yeah, Kobe White, we'll see what he, if they do, if he got to stay healthy. So that's really going to be the key if they want to get anything for him. So that's kind of what I'm looking at, see what the Bulls do, in a few weeks before the trade deadline, if they do anything.
Yeah, as we said the last couple of shows we did before we took our holiday break, Kobe White, because he's a younger player than Vooch, he brings the most value via trade for this Bulls team. And we'll see Arturas Corner show as the GM Mark Eversley do between now and the trade deadline you mentioned now. It's the Thursday before the All-Star break. Vucevic is a nice versatile player, big man for today's games. We talked about he's one of the best passing big men in the league, and there's a few teams that can use his services. So we'll see if the Bulls can play it right to get respectable value for Vucevic. But for Kobe White, as you mentioned, he has to stay healthy if the Bulls want to trade him. If not, you have to wait until the summer to see what happens there. You the Bulls management, you really don't want to do that, and that's your goal here. But as far as on the court, injuries that have played the Bulls against Zach Collins, who returned a few weeks ago. Now he's back on the injury list. Jalen Smith, he's been my guy since last season. He got injured last Saturday in that loss against Charlotte. He was in a concussion protocol. We'll see when he's able to return. I thought his loss was huge in that second half. That's one of the reasons why the Bulls lost. So the injury bug has hit the Bulls again. Now, when they were healthy for those 2 weeks, a couple weeks ago, they looked like a above average team, but the way the roster is constructed, injuries to key guys, they haven't been good. Now, I will give a shout out to Kevin Huerter, the veteran shooting guard. I know this is his second year in the Bulls uniform, but I know he started the year in the starting lineup because Kobe White's been hurt. But him coming off the bench is what's helping give him the Bulls life scoring wise coming up at the bench as well. He's been really impressive in these last couple weeks. He's been impressive so far this season overall.
This is Second City Sports on Sports Chicago. LaKeena McGee sitting around with you, talking some Bulls and NBA. Now, like I said, we just see what they do here. If they do anything, we know the Bulls have been accustomed to not doing anything, so we'll see what happens as we get into closer and closer to the trade deadline. So that's going to be something to look out for. We'll keep you guys updated. Now, the rest of the NBA, we'll just do the weekend games. I know we were on for a week, but we'll just do this weekend games since they're more current. The Lakers were down 18, but they came back to beat Memphis 120-114. Luka had 36 points. And look, I know Austin is going to be gone for a little bit, but look, the Lakers are hanging on as much as they can. They're at 22-11 as of this recording. And but they really need Austin Reeves back because who knows how long that they can that the Luka, LeBron, the rest of that group can keep up with that pace.
Yeah, as we talked about last year with Austin Reeves' game expanding, being a potential All-Star, he helps out Luka and LeBron James a lot. So Austin Reeves, his absence is being felt right now. So hopefully, as you mentioned, he gets back in that lineup soon. Shout out to DeAndre Ayton. I know he's been taking a step back these last few games, but he's had a nice start to the year. And so, and we talked about if the Lakers are going to do anything in the playoffs first. Their key guys are going to have to stay healthy. LeBron James has been healthy ever since he returned to the lineup in late November, so he's been healthy. Luka's got to stay healthy, but their role players are going to have to step up. So, and they've been doing that for the most part until these last 2 or 3 weeks. And their team defense has taken a step back, giving up 120 points these last few games. That's not going to cut. I know head coach JJ Redick has been unhappy about that, and rightfully so. So, the Lakers' hot start. They have come back. The Lakers have come back down to earth a little bit, but they're starting to get their timing back. They just need, as you mentioned, they need Austin Reeves to return. Hopefully, no one else gets hurt either. So the Lakers start was a little bit fugazi because of the way they've been playing these last few weeks, but they're still in the mix for those top 4 spots in the Western Conference.
Shout out to LaRavia. Well, I think LaRavia, I think that's how you say his name. 26 points, tied with LeBron, a career high for him. So he made a couple of big shots to kind of helped kick off that comeback. So shout out to him. And they may need to step a little bit too. So we'll see. Now going into games from last night, Milwaukee beat Sacramento. Giannis had 37. Phoenix, shout out to Phoenix. Jordan Goodwin had 26, but it was a go-ahead jumper by Devin Booker as they beat OKC. Shout out to our buddy Nick King, who is at CBS 5. We had him on the show a couple of times. He's at the CBS 5, the affiliate out there in Phoenix. He was actually at that game yesterday. The Suns look pretty good. I mean, 21 and 14 as we're recording this, and they've looked really good so far this year. And like I said, I'm not going to say they're one of the favorites in the West. I'm not saying that, but at least so far they've actually looked okay.
Yeah, there may be a contention for a play-in tournament. We'll see what happens. Devin Booker is having another All-Star year. I know he got injured early in the year, and I thought, just like everybody else, that Phoenix was going to go away. But their nice start to the season, they had somehow sustained this, and we'll see what happens. If Devin Booker stays healthy, he definitely gives Phoenix a chance to compete for a playoff spot, and no less a play-in tournament. So as long as he stays healthy and the rest of their role players continue to step up, Phoenix has a chance to be one of the surprise teams going into the second half of the year.
Yeah, I know that I know that the Thunder, I know Thunder fans, I don't think they're that worried. I mean, I know they started like at 22 and like one, and now they're like 5, like 6 and 5 or 5 like since then. They're 30 and 6, folks. Relax, okay? So I think it's the one that ebbs and flows along NBA regular season. Because I know guys, saw a few Thunder fans like, oh my God.
I think we went through those seasons a few times.
Oh God! Like, oh my God, the Thunder! Oh my God, they've guys. They don't. It's not. They're 30 and 6, folks. Relax, okay. Jeez.
Yeah. We went through those seasons a few times as Bulls fans in the 90s, so we know what you're going through.
Relax, folks. Relax. Minnesota, after losing a tough one against Atlanta on Wednesday on New Year's Eve, they've won a couple in a row. They beat Washington, took care of business against them, 141-115, 35 points for Ant. 125, 106 over New Orleans. Talk about the Heat. Norman Powell had 34 points. Shout out to Coach Spo's son, Caden, who did the lineups for the Heat. It's actually pretty funny.
Yeah.
He had his 3 kids with them. Of course, he was going to be a divorce. Had 3 kids. That they were acting like young kids. So there you go. But nice win for Miami after that tough loss against Minnesota on Saturday. I watched a little bit of that game on Saturday. Brooklyn beat Denver. Michael Porter Jr. had 27 points. Look, Jokic is going to be out for a few weeks, so I think for the Nuggets, you want to try and keep kind of everything sort of afloat until Jokic comes back before the All-Star break. I mean, but a nice win for Brooklyn though.
Yeah, Brooklyn's starting to turn around just a little bit. They're still going to be one of the worst teams in the league after the Washington Wizards. But you mentioned about the Denver Nuggets. I was going to bring them up in just a moment, but you beat me to it. But Jokic, he's avoiding knee surgery, thank goodness. But he's going to be out for release for the rest of this month. We talked about the injury to Aaron Gordon to start off the year. Their depth is being tested right now. Like you said, on their current East Coast road trip, they lost a tough one at Cleveland last Friday night on Amazon Prime, and they lost to Brooklyn yesterday. Of course, Jokic was in there. They would have won both those games. But Denver, if they could just keep their record around 500 till Jokic gets back, maybe around the All-Star break, I think they'll be okay. But as we talked about, LaKeena, you mentioned about the Minnesota Timberwolves, the top, it's going to be fight before those top 4 or 5 spots in the Western Conference. And we said that Denver, if healthy, they're going to be in the mix all year. So this Jokic injury will set them back, hopefully temporarily. But if the Nuggets with Aaron Gordon, Jamal Murray, Tim Hardaway Jr., Cam Johnson, and some of those other role players, Bruce Brown can step it up and keep them around 500 during this stretch this month, I think they'll be okay.
That's going to be really good, be the key, and not let anybody else get hurt. They can't afford to lose Jamal Murray. If he, God forbid, if he goes down, oh boy, it's gonna. There might be panic out there in the Mile High City now. Where the hell was I? Orlando beat Indiana. Desmond Bay had 31 points there. Detroit with a nice win against Cleveland. Cade Cunningham had 27 points. They're finishing up last night's games. Also, Saturday's games, real quick. I told you guys, Boston beat the Clippers. Jaylen Brown had 50. Golden State Steph had 31 as they held off Utah. Dallas beat Houston, 26 points for AD. Portland with a nice win against San Antonio. Denia Avila had 29 points. Of course, we talked about Charlotte beating the Bulls. Toronto with a nice win over Atlanta. Philadelphia with a good win over the Knicks, 36 points for Tyrese Maxey. And of course, I watched a little bit of this game on Saturday on NBA TV. The T-Wolves held off Miami, 33 points for Ant. And Miami go with the pastel type colors from the 80s. there's a reason for that. We'll talk about that after the break. But yeah, there's a reason for that. But there's a reason for the Miami Vice type of 80s pastel colors with the blues and the fuchsias and stuff. I'll spit it after the break.
Shout out to these couple of teams. The Philadelphia 76ers quietly trying to turn it around. I know Joel Embiid is on the minutes restriction. I know Paul George returned to the lineup a couple of weeks ago. You still have Tyrese Maxey there, an all-star veteran there, young all-star veteran there. If they can stay healthy, maybe they can finish in the top 6. Well, we shall see, but they're playing some good basketball right now. Toronto's trying to get back on track. I said Brandon Ingram early in the year when they got to the house start that he should be an all-star. He still should be in that consideration. We'll see if he gets in. In the Western Conference, LaKeena, I know that they took a step back, as you mentioned last Saturday, but the San Antonio Spurs, no one expected them. Even with the injury to Victor Wembanyama early in the year, I know he's back now still on a minutes restriction, but the San Antonio still holding down one of those top spots in the Western Conference. With that surprising start to the year, they still in the mix. So, as we said on our last show before we went on our break, will their front office make a move at the trade deadline?
It'll be interesting to see what they do because they definitely need a point guard, kind of like a facilitator. That's kind of what they need, and maybe or probably a big man too. We'll see. It's gonna be interesting to see what happens. But yeah, San Antonio, they've been kind of up and down, so we'll see what happens there as we go into this week's schedule. Real quick, I know we're up against it. The Knicks and Detroit. That's gonna be the first game on Peacock, and it will also air on NBC Sports Network. If you guys got that.
Hey.
What's up? Right, that should be a good one. Bulls and Celtics, we talked about that too earlier. Atlanta and Toronto, Phoenix and Houston, Charlotte and OKC, and these Peacock, kind of double header-esque kind of games. I know some of these, I think one of these games could be on ABC Sports Network in your area. Denver, they continue their East Coast trip against Philadelphia. Golden State and the Clippers at 9 o'clock, also on Peacock on NBC Sports Network as well. And Utah and Portland to cap off tonight's slate of games.
I know Kawhi scored 55 points a week or so ago. I know the Clippers are trying to get back into it, but it's been a rough go for LA's other team this year. And for the Warriors, I know they're 2 games above 500. I know Steph's been sitting here and there these last few games, but they need their whole squad back healthy. And Draymond Green acting a fool again. You cannot have that, Draymond. You know better than that. I'll leave it there. Now your schedule for Tuesday are as follows. The Cleveland will travel to Indiana to face the Pacers. Orlando will visit our nation's capital to face the Washington Wizards. The Spurs and the Grizzlies. The NBA on NBC coast to coast Peacock doubleheader. Most of the country will get Miami at Minnesota. Others will get Dallas at Sacramento. So those are both those games on NBC and Peacock for Coast to Coast Tuesday. And the Los Angeles Lakers will play in New Orleans against the Pelicans. So that's your schedule for Tuesday.
No, you're not. No, it's not repeating themselves. Yes, like I said, Minnesota and Miami did play each other on Saturday. So now Miami's on the road playing them at the Target Center. So yeah, it should be interesting to see what happens in that matchup. Now, Wednesday, Toronto and Charlotte, the Bulls and the Pistons. We know those two always have an interesting history there. Washington and Philadelphia. Denver continues their East Coast trip against Boston. That's going to be the first game of the ESPN Wednesday night doubleheader. New Orleans and Atlanta, Orlando again against Brooklyn. The Clippers begins their East Coast trip against the Knicks. Phoenix against Memphis. Utah and OKC. We'll see what kind of mood OKC will be in. The Lakers against San Antonio. That should be a good one on ESPN. That's going to be a second half of that ESPN doubleheader at 8:30. Milwaukee begins their West Coast trip at Golden State, and Houston and Portland should be a good one out there in Oregon.
Your schedule for Thursday looks like this: Indiana will visit Charlotte. The Miami Heat and the Chicago Bulls will be the lone NBA TV game on the night outside of the Chicagoland area. The Bulls will host the Miami Heat. The rematch from last year's play-in tournament game. The rest of the Thursday night schedule looks like this: Cleveland will visit Minnesota. And the Mavericks, as they try to climb back to the 500 mark, they'll visit the Utah Jazz. And that's your schedule for Thursday and for this upcoming week in the National Basketball Association. Maybe that's the Bulls management calling you, LaKeena.
Yeah, so that might be. But but of course, we'll take a really quick break, our last break of the day for the show today here on Second City Sports on Sports of Chicago. The college football playoff, they're down to the Final Four. Also, college conference plays in full swing. The Blackhawks are undefeated so far this young 2026 year, and a special edition of Old School TV Monday. I think you guys will definitely like. You guys like all the shows and stuff that shows to be done, but you'll definitely like this one. Already kind of a late anniversary coming up here from a groundbreaking show. We'll tell you what that show is coming up next. LaKeena McGee, Sidney Brown, Second City Sports on Sports Chicago, our Sports Potpourri 7 coming up right after this.
Oh.
Hey, it's your boy, the Superback, Sean Sierra, and be sure to follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms on Facebook, Instagram, and our Roku channel. You can find us at Sports Zone Chicago, and on Twitter, we are at Sports Zone Shy. Also, be sure to download our mobile app so you can take Sports Zone Chicago with you on the go.
Got it done here. Ouch! And we're gonna make sure you lit this time. Ouch! You're not gonna get me this time.
Ow, Manny!
Whoops! Let's try an easy one.
Every day, we take steps to keep the people we love safe, but some health risks are easy to miss. Ticks hiding in the yard can spread germs, like the ones that cause Lyme disease. Mice searching for food can spread bacteria that makes us sick. Mosquitoes lay eggs in standing water and can spread West Nile virus and more. Cockroaches are drawn to water in the home, leaving behind allergens that can trigger asthma attacks. Common pests can threaten our health. Learn how to protect your family at pestworld.org.
Hey, this is Corey McGee, and I listen to Sean and Maya on the morning show.
Welcome back to Second City Sports, our first show for the year 2026. You're locked and loaded in real live and living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. I'm Sid the Kid right here. LaKeena McGee is there. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow LaKeena McGee on the Twitter, X, and the IG.
This is our sports potpourri segment. This is our last segment of the show for today. So if you have any questions or comments on any of the topics that we discussed thus far on today's show, what are your thoughts about the Bears as they open up their schedule against the Green Bay Packers in the playoffs next weekend? You want to have a thought about the Bulls or the rest of the NFL, the NBA, or any other subjects we're getting ready to discuss in our last segment, you can definitely hit us up at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comment section. LaKeena, we get the up on the screen for you.
It's down to the Final Four in college football, in the college football playoff, I should say. The games that that came out on both New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, they left. Well, let's just say this: 2 of them were actually thrillers. The other one kind of left a lot to be desired. The other, well, I think there was like one that was actually really good. We'll get to that game in a second. But going in order here, we'll start off in the Orange Bowl, and I don't think anybody's really surprised by what happened here early on. But Oregon shut out the Texas Tech Red Raiders 23-0. And, Dante Moore had 234 yards, 42 rushing yards for Jordan Davidson and a couple of TDs. And it was really the defense for Oregon. They sacked Barrett Morton 4 times, and they caught 2 receptions from him. So, it was really all Oregon on this one. And I don't think anybody is, I think some people are really shocked by that, but I'm not. I thought that maybe experience was going to be a factor here, and that's what happened on New Year's Eve.
The only thing I found shocking was that Texas Tech was shut out on the scoreboard. No points, despite 13 carries and 81 rushing yards for Jacoby Williams and 72 receiving yards from Terrence Carter off of 9 catches. Despite those 2 performances from the Red Raiders star players on offense, I thought they'd at least score 14 points. But like you said, it didn't happen. Oregon's defense really stepped up to play despite Mr. Moore, Dante Moore, not having a great game. So Oregon, I know they're not the same team as we've seen over the last few years, but they still have good enough talent to get by. And so defense was the name of the game for the Ducks. We'll see them in their next matchup coming up on Friday against this next team that we're going to talk about here as they played in the Rose Bowl. Indiana defeating Alabama 38-3. LaKeena, I know you're going to break down the stats coming up, but looking at some of that game before I turned it away, of course, the weather played a huge factor, but let's be real here, LaKeena. The Indiana Hoosiers, they're the best team in the country, at least on paper. They're a very good team, not to disrespect it, but Alabama, for those of you that want to say that Notre Dame deserved to be in that spot instead of Alabama gave you that reason last Thursday afternoon, why they shouldn't have been there in the first place.
Well, I would argue that Alabama. Well, I think they probably also would have. Indiana would probably have gotten their revenge on Notre Dame from last year's playoff. I think they probably would have. That's a much better Indiana squad than what Notre Dame faced last year. But I digress. It was basically all Indiana. 3 TDs for Fernando Mendoza. Kalen Black had a rushing TD. Omar Cooper Jr.'s first game back from injury. He had a TD catch as well. The defense for Indiana, they were basically lights out and such. Alabama could have game going. Yeah, you could probably say weather was a little bit of a factor there in that game, but yeah, I think it was still all Indiana. I think Indiana has proven to you all that why they're the number 1 team in the country going into this game, as they should be, and they will face each other, like Sid said, in the Peach Bowl coming up on Friday. And, let's go to the Cotton Bowl Classic as Miami beats Ohio State 24-14. Carson Beck threw for 330 yards and a TD. Mark Fletcher Jr. had 90 rushing yards. On the flip side, Julian Sayin had 287 yards, a TD, but it was the Miami defense that was the key here. 2 interceptions. They caused 2 interceptions from Julian Sayin. They also sacked him 5 times, and including a pick 6 from Keontae Scott that kind of broke the game open for Miami. And look, like we said this at Miami, this is going to be a Miami defense this is going to be the best defense that the Buckeyes would be facing all season, and they showed you why last week.
Yeah, I think I said last Monday on the show that Miami had a chance. So you saw what happened with Miami. They decimated Texas A&M in their first game in the college football playoff. You saw what they did to Ohio State here. I said that Malachi Tony was going to be a factor. He turned out to be a non-factor, but I said Mark Fletcher Jr. needs to have a big game. He did 19 carries for 90 yards. You mentioned about that Hurricanes defense. It was a 14-0 start in the second quarter that really separated Miami from the Buckeyes. On the flip side, for the Buckeyes, outside of Jeremiah Smith, who in my opinion, he was their MVP for the team, 7 catches, 157 yards in the score. Really had to question some of the decisions from head coach Ryan Day. You're going to sit here and tell me that this is Wednesday night. And so, as you mentioned, credit to the Hurricanes defense, but there was a lot of questionable decisions from the other side for the Buckeyes sidelines.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a question of gameplay, I guess you can say. But Miami, I think definitely was the better team on Wednesday, and that's probably they showed you why just now on Wednesday. Now they will face no, not Georgia. They will be facing Ole Miss, as Ole Miss. It was a back and forth game. Georgia was actually up 21-12 going into halftime, but to the Ole Miss Rebels' credit, they scored 20 points in the fourth quarter, including what ended up being the game winning field goal as they beat Georgia 39-34. Trinidad Chambliss 62 yards and 2 TDs. Kyron Lacey, even though he had an early fumble, he came back 2 rushing TDs. Harrison Wallace, the third, 156 receiving yards, as well as Dewan Stribling. On the flip side for Georgia, Gunnar Stockton threw for a TD. Nate Frazier had a 86 rushing yards. Stockton had 2 rushing TDs. But it was a call on 4th and shorts that I know that a lot of Georgia fans are going to be smarting that, even though Kirby Smart said that probably wasn't the smartest decision that he made, but you wonder if they had gone for it and maybe they had gotten it, maybe they probably would have been able to melt the clock and Ole Miss would not have gotten the ball back.
So you're saying to me that the head coach didn't live up to his last name? How surprising. But remember, I've been telling you this all year, LaKeena, that Georgia, even though they were still a good team, they weren't that dominant team that we come and expect to see from the Bulldogs over the last several years. And it cost them in that back and forth battle against Ole Miss. We talked about Ole Miss missing Lane Kiffin. Now he's off at LSU. But credit to these young men putting that distraction behind them, going out and playing that game. And I said on our last show last week that Trinidad Chambliss was going to have a big game. He did, with 362 passing yards and 2 touchdowns. And like you mentioned, shout out Kawan Lacey after that early fumble. Bounced back with a great performance, so 98 yards and 2 touchdowns off of 22 carries. So, and LaKeena, I'm surprised it's still a final, because after watching what happened in those last few minutes, LaKeena, you notice that after the Georgia recovered their own onside kick, and then we had another penalty. Did you see that crew that was trying to roll out that stage? They had to roll it back out there 3 times.
Yep, yep, they did. They
before
they definitely
the game
had their
finally
workout.
ended up. I found that very funny and very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, they had a lot of workout having to roll it back out there, to roll it back in because there was still some time left and such. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting though. Let's see with Chambliss. Chambliss is lobbying for another year eligibility. Remember, he won 2 national championships at Ferris State on the D2 level, so he has a lot of experience playing in championship games. So they will face Miami. That should be a fun matchup. That game will actually, we can actually preview that game right now, since that game will be on Thursday. That'll be the Fiesta Bowl out there in Tempe, and it's gonna be interesting to see how that Miami defense measures up to that to Chambliss, because it's probably gonna be one of the better defenses. If he thought Georgia defenses was actually good, that Miami defense is actually really good. A young defense at that. A great running back matchup between Mark Fletcher Jr. and Kyron Lacey, and it's really going to be dependent on who sets the tone early on, because I think this is going to be the thing here. Weather shouldn't be an issue. I know we know Arizona weather is actually pretty stagnant for the most part. So I'm looking forward. This matchup should be very interesting. I know a lot of people wanted Miami and Georgia, but this should be a good matchup between them and Ole Miss.
Yeah, keep your eye on the Miami Hurricanes secondary because, as you mentioned, LaKeena, Mr. Harrison Wallace had a big game for Ole Miss against Georgia last week. I think the Miami, I want to see how the Miami's defense is going to double team him, how they're going to scheme around shutting down Mr. Harrison Wallace for Ole Miss. But I'll say this as a Bears fan, I think Ryan Poles has a job to do as far as scouting for a defensive end in the NFL draft. If they don't trade for one. There's a couple defensive ends for Miami that Ryan Poles should take a look at. I'll leave it there as far as the Bears angle is concerned. But back to this game. You mentioned who's going to set the tone here early. Like you said, I think it's going to be a battle of running backs between Corline Lacey and Mark Fletcher Jr. I'm looking for Malachi Tony to have a big performance. He was a no-show last week against Ohio State. I want to see him have a big game, whether it's in a kickoff game, in a kick return game, or as a receiver. And quiet as has kept, Carson Beck has played better. And so I want to see Carson Beck have a big game for Miami. Chambliss, I know. But Carson Beck has been playing very well, so let's see if he can keep it up. On the flip side, you mentioned about Chambliss. This is going to be the toughest defense he's seen perhaps all year. So with those two defensive ends from Miami, that defense is young, hungry, and aggressive. He's going to face a challenge from start to finish. We'll see how the offensive line for Ole Miss holds up.
That'll be part of the ESPN's megacast, down there in Tempe, Arizona. The Fiesta Bowl, that'll be on Thursday on, of course, the ESPN family of networks as well. I'm sure they're going to have all types of game casts and such. We will preview the Oregon-Indiana game at the Peach Bowl. That'll be on Friday. We'll preview that game on Friday, but it should be a really both these semifinals should be really solid. So I think if you're ESPN, you're feeling pretty good about these matchups going into these bowl games. Now, shout out to Illinois. They won their bowl game, holding off Tennessee down there in Nashville. So that shout out to them. And we'll see Luke Altmaier leaving a winner. So that's shout out to him. That was a pretty thrilling bowl game. Lots of orange out there for the Music City Bowl. So shout out to them. As well. Also, Duke with the Tony Tiger Sun Bowl. That was a really good matchup between them and Arizona State. You'll never see anybody so happy about being ducked with Frosted Flakes. So Manny Diaz got the Frosted Flakes.
Oh, that's sugar.
They'll never see a grown man so happy about being ducked with Frosted Flakes. Archman with a nice showing going into next year, as of course Texas beat Michigan in the Citrus Bowl. Utah beat Nebraska in the Vegas Bowl down there, and of course in Las Vegas. SMU with a nice win over Arizona in the Holiday Bowl to cap off that one, and also the Duke's Mayo Bowl. Wake Forest beat Mississippi State in the Mayo Bowl, which I felt for their head Wake Forest. I felt for their head coach because I felt so bad for Jake Dickert and his family because they got dumped by a bunch of. Well, I'll give this his son. His youngest son actually. His sons loved it. His wife. I don't think she liked it too, but I don't think he was very happy with it. But yeah, would you rather get dunked on, Sid, either by Mayo or Frosted Flakes?
Frosted Flakes. I'm not a mayonnaise guy, so Frosted Flakes for me. Now I wouldn't eat all that sugar, but at least Frosted Flakes smells good. At least these sensitive nose right here. My sensitive nose.
Well, yeah, the stains too. Yeah, it doesn't stain as much as the mayo, so I'm sure they all had to
exactly
for dry cleaning. But yeah, but a nice showing by the bowl games and so far. Also, too, shout out to our buddy Mark Grody from 670 The Score. His alma mater, Illinois State, will be facing Montana State in the FCS championship game out there at First Bank Stadium tonight at 6:30 on ESPN. Illinois State has already made history being the first team to win 3 straight road games going into the championship game. So hopefully they can cap off their Cinderella run with a championship.
All right. Good luck to the Illinois State. Illinois State. You listen to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. LaKeena here with it before we close out with our debut edition of Old School TV Monday for the year 2026. LaKeena, I know we'll have sports media news in just a second, but you have some college hoops notes for us from over the weekend, including Illinois. The Fighting Illini, their first victory for the new year 2026, defeating Penn State 73-65 on the road last Saturday night.
They did. Yeah, they didn't shoot the ball well, but again, like I said, I mean, look, they got 18 of these in total, so you're going to have these kind of games where you're not going to shoot the ball very well. They only shot 22% from 3-point range, and only 39% from the field. But they did just enough to win that game. They played it out the Palestra, which is, for those who don't know, the Palestra out there in Philadelphia, where all the Big Five teams, as Penn State's one of them. That was a nice cut. I think when they usually play it wasn't available, so that's why they played at the Palestra. But a nice showing by them. I know Boswell had 18 points, which was a season high for him. Keaton Wegler had 16 points as well for Illinois. So yeah, a nice show for Illinois, but you can't really have these kind of games, and expect to win all the time. But you'll take it though if you're Illinois. So a nice win for Illinois, even though they didn't shoot the ball very well.
And I said early in the year when they lost to Alabama, Andre Stojakovic, yes, Pedro Stojakovic's son, he's going to be a key in this Illinois offense offensively as well. But the Fighting Illini shot over 82% for the free throw line. That was the big key for them there, and they got some big stops late, and that's why they won that ball game.
Yep. Arizona, no trouble with Utah. Duke, no trouble. Duke, no trouble with Florida State. It was there for a little bit, but they did make enough shots. Isaiah Evans had 28 points there for Duke. Purdue beat Wisconsin. Also, shout out to Braden Smith, who now becomes the all-time leader in the Big Ten in assists. So he had 9 assists in that game against Wisconsin on Saturday. BYU beat K-State. Houston beat Cincy. SMU upset North Carolina. They got their signature win. Also, Mizzou, they got their signature win over the reigning champ Florida. I want to do this case on the phone. I know our buddies Josh Fryman and Mike Berman, of course, they work for WGN and NBC Chicago, respectively. I know they were happy about that win because they also are also our new buddy of the show too, from Jack from NBC ESPN 1000. I know he's a big Mizzou guy. He's a Mizzou guy too. I know he was.
Jack McGrath, yeah.
Jack McGrath, yeah. So that was a nice win for Mizzou. A nice. They needed a signature win, and they got it. So that showed them tournament time. DePaul got a nice win over Xavier and such. UConn, no trouble with Marquette. Gonzaga, no trouble with Loyola Marymount. And a shout out to Bradley lost a tough one to Murray State, but also Southern Illinois got a nice win over Edgenau Belmont in conference play in the Missouri Valley. Now, some of the games coming up this week, got Nebraska and Ohio State. They're undefeated right now. I'm talking about Nebraska. We'll see if they can keep it going against Ohio State. Talking about FS1 tonight. Oregon and Rutgers. That's gonna be on Peacock. And let me see. That's about it for USC and Michigan State. That should be a good one out there. The Breslin Center in East Lansing. That's going to be on FS1 later on tonight. Duke and Louisville. Louisville had a tough loss against Stanford. We'll see what mood they're going to be in. Michigan. They face Penn State. Yep. FS1 tomorrow, Tuesday. Also, the Duke Louisville game is going to be on ESPN. Georgia and Florida at 6 o'clock on the C Network. And let me see anything else. Oh, Texas Tech and Houston, that should be a good one on the Big 12 on FS1 at 8 o'clock. Texas and Tennessee on ESPN2. TCU and Kansas is going to be on ESPN. And that's it for that one. UCLA and Wisconsin, that's at 8 o'clock on the Peacock Network. Like I said, conference plays in full swing, folks. Missouri and Kentucky at 6 o'clock on ESPN2. Illinois, Iowa State and Baylor is going to be on Peacock, as well as Creighton and Villanova.
Wednesday.
Vanderbilt, they're undefeated. They host Alabama. That should be a good one on ESPN2. SMU and Clemson, that should be a good one on 8 o'clock. Bradley hosts Drake on ESPN Plus. And hopefully Loyola can get it going as they host Davidson on Wednesday on CBS Sports Network.
And to wrap up the college hoop schedule for this week, for Thursday, a couple of big games of note locally. Northwestern, they'll travel to East Lansing to take on Tom Izzo, the 12th ranked Michigan State Spartans. That's at 5:30 p.m. on Big Ten Network. In the second half of that Big Ten Network doubleheader, number 16 Illinois will host Rutgers at 7:30. The final line 11-3 on the year. Northwestern, they're 8-6 on the year. So a big game for both teams locally here in college basketball, as you mentioned, as conference play opens up as we start the new year.
Should be some fun matchups coming up in all the big networks. As Second City Sports on Sports for Chicago, LaKeena, McGee, Sidney Brown with you as we're wrapping things up here on the first show of 2026. Now, shout out to the Blackhawks. They've won 3 in a row. They have not lost since the calendar changed to 2026. They got a nice win against Vegas. They're 3-2. Tyler Bertuzzi got a hat trick and the game winner in overtime. So he's had a nice last couple weeks for the Blackhawks. They had a nice thrilling win against the Capitals on Saturday, and of course also the Dallas Stars a couple on New Year's Day. So shout out to the Blackhawks, and they face the Blues on Wednesday. That's going to be on TNT, HBO Max, and True TV. So I'll definitely be checking that out.
We thought that the bomb was going to fall out for Chicago after Connor Bedard went down. I know that Spencer Knight has been having a rough go of it lately. I still believe in him. He's the number one goalie for the Chicago Blackhawks, and that he's still around the 91% mark in terms of save percentage, tops in the NHL. But this team has not quite, LaKeena, as you mentioned, Jeff Blasel. They give him credit for keeping these guys motivated. Those young guys are hungry, they're skilled, and they really want to prove something not only to themselves but to the fans as well. Tyler Bertuzzi, I'm not calling him the next Dustin Byfuglien, no, but he's starting to become one of my other favorite Blackhawk players as well. He's having a nice year for the Hawks, and being that gritty, tough, aggressive guy, especially around the net. You need those kind of guys. You like those kind of guys that like to mix it up a bit. So he's becoming one of my other favorite Blackhawk players to watch as well.
Like I said, he's been playing very well those last couple of weeks, and it's been very interesting. There, of course, Tampa and Carolina, they've been playing very well up to this point as we go into the new year. But Colorado, they've looked really good so far. I believe they got the best record in the league, almost 70 points so far this year for them. And look, they got a lot of those guys going to the Olympics, so. I mean, it's definitely. I know they lost to Florida last night. That was a tough loss there, but they did get a point, so that's why they get 69 points right now. But still, I mean, I really like the way the Avs are playing right now, and I know their center Landeskog will miss some time. They did not say how much time, but they said he'll miss some time. He got injured yesterday in that game, but. I really like how Colorado's playing. And Nathan McKinnon is probably could say is probably the leader of the clubhouse, I think, for MVP, don't you think?
Yeah, I think so as well. And let's not forget to most of these players, as you mentioned, they're going to be playing in the Olympics. I believe exactly 1 month from tomorrow that the opening ceremonies for the Winter Olympics in Italy will start. So this is a last try for these teams to get positioning for the playoffs before the Olympic break. And so we'll see how these teams play for the players that are going to the Olympics. But I'm going to ask you a question real quick. I just only caught the highlights, but did you get a chance to catch the Winter Classic at all? Because there wasn't really much buzz this year. I know it was the Rangers against Florida, the first time the state of Florida hosted it, but and it's since much buzz about it this year. I know the game was a drag. I know the Rangers won it 5-1, but I didn't get much buzz about it this year.
Yeah, I saw the Panthers as they were coming in with their with all the pastels, like the Miami Vice type, kind of pastels and stuff. They all had like the Don Johnson colors and such. I saw that, but that's about it. Like I said, when I saw the score, it was like, okay, whatever. But yeah, there wasn't really a lot of buzz about it this year. But like I said, the game being not being very good didn't help either. So unfortunately, but yeah, could it be that maybe the Winter Classic might just be like out of step now? I don't know.
Yeah, and this is those questions that Commissioner Gary Bettman is going to have to answer. And I know they get a lot of sponsorships for that game, and I know there's still some cities that want to host it. But you hosted it in a non-traditional hockey market like Florida. I know they're back-to-back Stanley Cup champions. We get that, the Panthers, but you're hosting these in non-traditional hockey markets. You think it was going to get a bump, but it looks like it was a failure this year, more so by the lack of competition in that game.
Now, real quick, do you think Connor Bedard was has a legitimate? I know he said he's not very upset about it, but he's got to grab him about not going to the Olympics. Look, I think this just shows that this. I know this goes no shade to Bedard. I think it just shows how deep Canada is. Of course, they're going to be the favorites. Of course, going into the Olympics. Of course, Sweden. They're going to be another favorite, as well as the Czech Republic too, and maybe even Finland. The U.S. might be in the mix as well. They got a great team themselves, but. Do you think Bedard was slighted not getting selected to that Olympic Canadian team?
I think a little bit, but like you said, it shows you how deep that talented roster is for Canada. So I guarantee you this is if someone gets hurt between now and the opening ceremonies or when the games begin, they'll call him up real quick as long as he's healthy for the Blackhawks first. If that happens, he'll definitely get a call up. But yeah, he has every right to feel slighted. But like you say, he's still young, he's still maturing. And it's not going to be too long if he doesn't participate in this year's Olympics. And there'll be plenty of opportunities for him to participate on Team Canada down the road. So he shouldn't be too worried. But I know the most important thing is getting back healthy for the Blackhawks first. But, I think he'll use that as motivation to help the Blackhawks keep the Blackhawks competing every night as soon as he returns to the lineup.
I know we're up against it, but before we go to Old School TV Monday, a special edition there. Sports media news, Sid. Of course, the 6-7 to score. Their ratings for their new lineup with congrats to of course, courtesy of our buddy Mr. Jeff Agris, of course, from the Sun Times. Let me see if I can get them.
Friend of the show too.
Yes, let me see if I can get these ratings up. Now, the score, I think if you're the score, you got to be feeling pretty good about the Rays. I think, yeah, you can probably say something is still the Bears doing as well as they've done this year, so that might have played a little bit of a part, but they're up in all their demos. They're up among the 25 to 34-year-old males. They're only second only to WKQX, which is a music station, for those of you who are wondering what that is. They're up from 4.6 in the summer. This is going into from September 18th to December 10th. They finished number 2 in the market. Now, that's not counting, of course. I watched it through YouTube. That's just easier for me, with my schedule and such. But they're up and all across the board, from the Mully and Hanley slot, 5. That's up from 4.2. Our buddies Rahimi Harris and Grody, 4.6. That's up from 4.1. And also, of course, our buddy Lawrence Holmes, also Matt Spiegel, their show, they're tied for second. That's up from 5.3. They're at 5.5. That's a little bit of an uptick. So I know they just celebrated their anniversary as well. 34 years since they've been a station. So I know they just celebrated that anniversary yesterday. But yeah, I think if you're the score, you got to be feeling pretty good about the ratings going into the new year.
Yeah, we know that Spiegels and Holmes are there, the number one show on that station. I know people were worried about the three-headed monster as far as the midday show, but it sounds like to me they got their stride back with all three of them good friends of the show, and so people are catching on to it. You know that the Score is a big brand. No one's bigger than in that brand. So shout out Mitch Rosen and the rest of that team over there. So I know all stations go through trying times and whatnot, but looks like the Score has come out of it again. So they still remain the number one station, sports station in the market. Now, as far as ESPN 1000 is concerned, I know they're out of the Nielsen ratings for whatever reason, but I know that more people are listening to that station only because the Bear games are on. And I know they'll get a huge boost because of them being in the playoffs now against Green Bay. But ESPN 1000, they're now more local during the day, except for 12 to 2 because of Rich Eisen. But outside of that, what are they going to do with that 2 to 3 p.m. hour before Wild and Silver? Will Wild and Silver go back to 4 hours, or will they continue with Shane Norling and Tyler Aki, or a combination of other young talent over there? Our guy Jack McGrath. We'll see what they do with that 2 to 3 p.m. hour.
Yeah, because of course, Adam Abdallah and Chris Black have made their debut, officially making their debut. I think their show is over right now, but you can go back and listen to it on the replay on YouTube on SiriusXM. Just subscribe to their YouTube channel. It's right there. So
like an Abdallah.
Yeah. So if you're yeah, so if you're, if you missed it, no problem. You can listen to it for free on their YouTube channel. It's right there. They're streaming. So yeah, it's gonna be just to see what. But yeah, they should do just fine over there at the Sirius XM.
Yeah, Black and the Dollar Show is the YouTube channel, so you can catch that over there. That's part of the new Westwood One Sports Radio Network. They're on 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, 12 to 3 p.m. Eastern every day, talking national sports. So now I have to talk about the bad Chicago teams on this show outside the Chicago Bears, who are in the playoffs, as we just mentioned. Listening to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. LaKeena here with you. We're closing out today's show as we always do. In of course, with our segment to close out every Monday show, we're going to do it again to start off 2026. We usually end Mondays on a high note, on a positive note for those of you new listeners and viewers. And today, for Old School TV Monday, this anniversary took place this past Saturday, 34 years ago, if 36 years ago, if my math is correct. It was the debut for the Arsenio Hall late night talk show. Yay! Ooh, 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 ooh. Arsenio Hall, of course, the actor and comedian, became the first Black African-American man to host a late night talk show. As I mentioned, he was a comedian, actor, of course. Before his late night talk show, he was in a movie Coming to America. But before then, he filled in for the late, great Joan Rivers on The Late Show, was airing on Fox. He did a 13-week trial run. He became popular overnight, connecting with the guests and the audience. Of course, thus, during the fall of 1988, he signed a deal with CBS Paramount to host his own late night talk show, not just as a host, but he was the executive producer and the creator of the Arsenio Hall show as well. He had various guests for the entertainment world, and most notably, LaKeena, you know this as well as I do, he brought hip hop acts on to a prime time slot show that audiences outside of the African American community have never heard of. He put them on as music guests. He interviewed them as well, expanded the music artists' popularity. And of course, Arsenio Hall has some controversial moments on the show as well. But all in all, LaKeena, Arsenio Hall show was a big contribution, not to the African American community, but to the broader community of America and beyond in pop culture as well.
Yeah, he definitely had a little bit of everything. He's interviewed a lot of guys and gals, of course, musicians, headline makers. He interviewed. Also, remember, people felt that it was his appearance. It was Bill Clinton who was, behind the polls in '92, and that kind of helped propel them to the Democratic nomination. Of course, the rest is history there. Of course, his appearance kind of helped his campaign out, and it's definitely one of those
playing the
shows
sex.
where, yeah, and look, I mean. Look, they didn't think that, when he did that 13-week tryout, if you will, sitting in for Joan Rivers, they didn't think that he would be, they didn't think he would take off, as he did, but he did. And, he only did the 13 weeks and he had plans to do other things. But of course, CBS Paramount, offered him that big contract and such. Of course, the debut was on a Tuesday on January 3rd. And the guests that day were Brooke Shields, Leslie Nielsen, of course, and Luther Vandross. That was one of the two late night shows to premiere that month. Of course, the other one was, of course, the Pat Sajak show. We all know what happened there. Yeah, we won't go there. But yeah, I mean, it was definitely one of those things where he definitely brought pop culture, music, and everything else. He had athletes, he had, musicians, politicians, foreign dignitaries, and such. And, and it was definitely, it was definitely one of those things that definitely kind of broke the mold, if you will, for late nights. Now, they did try to do a revival back in 2013. It didn't work, unfortunately. And of course, he was only on not even a year. But I think this one, we're honoring this one. And I think some of the episodes, you can't catch a lot of the full-length episodes, but some of the clips are all on YouTube, so you can check it out to relive the moments and such. But yeah, it was he definitely broke the mold when it came to late night television.
Yeah, and sticking to sports, some of the notable sports guest stars he had on the show: Ken Griffey Jr. twice, including the first time he was there with his father, Ken Griffey Sr. Michael Jordan, I remember that one. I got that one on DVD. He had Scottie Pippen the night before they won the championship over the Los Angeles Lakers. Mike Tyson, Muhammad Ali, David Robinson, Isaiah Thomas, and he had Bo Jackson on the show as well. Just a notable guest sports stars on the show. And he had some of the wrestlers from the from at that time WWF, including
WWF, yep.
Macho Man Randy
Macho
Savage. He was on that show
yep.
as well.
Yes, he was. I remember that episode very well. I think he was definitely that was right after. I think that was right after WrestleMania, if I'm not mistaken. From I think like 91.
I think you're correct. Yeah,
yeah, somewhere around there. But yeah, he definitely had his share of sports figures. Of course, Sugar Ray Leonard was also on there, as well as Karl Malone. And he also had some Olympic athletes as well. So I think they gave him exposure too after the 92 Olympics. I think he had Kerry Strug too, I believe, after the 90s. Well, no, not Kerry Strug, but it was somebody else that they had like right after the triumph in the night. Oh, Chris Yamaguchi, that's who it was. I believe she was on there too.
Yeah, I saw that one over the weekend. Yeah, that's on YouTube. Yes.
Yeah, she was on that rider. She won the gold medal in the women's ladies after the ladies figure skating championship. She was on there too. That was a pretty memorable appearance as well. So yeah, so like I said, a lot of those episodes are on YouTube. The clips are on YouTube. You can't find. It's hard to find the full episodes, but a lot of the clips and stuff some of the clips are on YouTube. You just gotta look them up. But yeah, I think Arsenio Hall. Look, he's still doing his thing. He's still doing the comedy circuit and such. Of course, he did the of course he did the second. The second, Coming to America, which it was okay, it wasn't great, but he appeared on there, so that's pretty cool, but still pretty cool.
All right, real quickly, LaKeena, your favorite Arsenio Hall show moment?
Oh gosh, I think the one I just saw that one too on Instagram with the Muhammad Ali appearance. I think Mike Tyson. I think Mike was. Oh no, it was Sugar Ray Leonard. They just showed it on Instagram about a couple of days ago, and that was probably one of my favorite moments. And also, of course, Bill Clinton, of course, with the saxophone. I think that kind of helped him score some cool points with the younger folks. What about you? What's your favorite moment?
And of course, real quick, for me, real quick, Michael Jordan, when he was on there the year before the Bulls won, that was in February 1990, before the All-Star weekend in Miami. Of course, Jordan was somebody's new teammate, Scottie Pippen. Of course, they're catching up on his career. And, of course, Magic Johnson, when he announced when he had the HIV. Remember, Magic, his first TV interview was Arsenio first before he did everybody else. So that full episode is also on YouTube as well.
Yep. So, yeah. So, like I said, a lot of the episodes, some of the episodes, not all of them, but some of the episodes and some of the best moments are on YouTube. So make sure you guys can check that out.
All right. So for Old School TV Monday to kick off 2026, we salute the 1989 to 1994 late night talk show, the Arsenio Hall Show. LaKeena, take us home.
Oh, and some breaking news here. Tom Pelso from the NFL Network said that CBS would like to Matt Ryan would like to retain his role with CBS while working with the Falcons, kind of what Tom Brady does with the Raiders. We'll see if they'll let him do that. Could be something to look out for as well. Now, with that said, you can follow LaKeena McGee on the Twitter X, like yours in the IG.
You can follow yours truly, Sidney Brown, on the Twitter X and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80, SIDKID80, SIDKID80. Be sure to download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Please follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms on Facebook, X, Instagram, and YouTube. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
Be sure to catch Second City Sports Live in the living color every Monday, every Friday from 12:15 to 2:15 p.m. Central Standard Time right here on Sports Zone Chicago. One more again, as the kids would say. Be sure to catch Second City Sports Live in the living color every Monday, every Friday from 12:15 to 2:15 p.m. Central Standard Time right here on Sports Zone Chicago.
Now, of course, if you miss out on any segments, any interviews, or picks, don't worry. It's okay. You can catch Sports Zone Chicago anytime, anywhere on the Sports Zone Chicago, especially YouTube channels. It's all right there for you. And also, you catch replays of our show, Sean Sierra Sports, the Smoke Fellas, and so much more. You can miss an interview, a segment, whatever. Catch it anytime, anywhere on Sports Chicago, especially YouTube channels.
And we will provide.
And don't worry, folks, we will be previewing Packers Bears for Saturday on Friday, as well as the rest of the wild card weekend. So also, you got, of course, your college basketball and NBA basketball, college football. We'll see if Illinois State can win it all tonight on the FCS side. Excuse me. And also, of course, the first semifinal between Miami and Ole Miss. That should be a fun one. out there in Tempe. So enjoy all the sports coming up this week. For Sid, I'm the case of Second City Sports on Sports Chicago, and we'll see you guys on Friday.
Let's get busy. Holla!
Woo, 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 woo.